welcome back. Today I'm doing something a little bit different, something that I've not done before, but I feel that it is worth talking about. If you watched my previous video, you'll know I've just bought a 2006 R50 Mini, so first generation new Mini. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to do like a little buyer's guide, what to look out for, things to consider when buying a first generation Mini. First off, before we get into it, there's a little bit of housekeeping to do. The new Minis, I find a lot of people get confused between the R numbers, which is the chassis code, which basically designates each separate model. So the car I'm going to be discussing is called an R50. So that's the first generation new Mini, and that was made between 2001 and 2006, and is a hatchback, 3-door hatchback. Between 2001 and 2006 is an R50. Non-Cooper S, that is key, not a Cooper S. So you've got a Mini 1 or a Cooper, both of them are an R50. If you're looking at a Cooper S, that is an R53, which is also a 3-door hatch, made between 2002 and 2006. But it has a supercharged engine, different floor pan, a few other differences. And then you've also got the convertible cars, which are an R52. They were made between 2004 and 2008 for the first generation convertible car. Again, they're different floor pan, different body. Obviously it's convertible, hence why it's got a different number. Some of the things are transferable between the 50, the 52 and the 53. So things like suspension, brakes is the same throughout them all. You've got the dashboard layout, everything's the same, the seats are the same, the doors are the same. The engines between the Cooper and the One models are the same. There is just a difference in the ECU, which changes the power output. Obviously the 53 is a slightly different engine. It's the same base engine, but they are supercharged. So without going into too much detail about all the similarities and differences, I just wanted to point out that I am talking about an R50, so a naturally aspirated, non-supercharged, not the Cooper S, hatchback between 2001 and 2006. But please do use this as a little bit of guidance if you're looking at a convertible or a Cooper S as well. So the first generation Mini, like I just said, released in 2001. So anything between 2001 and 2004 on an 04 plate is a pre-facelift or a pre-LCI. You might see that term kicked around a bit if you're looking at adverts. LCI, that basically is just BMW's way of saying facelift. So then between 2004 and 2006, so anything from a 54 plate to a 56 plate, you'll be looking at an LCI or a facelift car. There's some subtle differences, so things like headlights, tail lights, a couple of modules are different, but the same basic car is the same. So this information that I'm going to try and get for you tonight is the same between facelift and pre-facelift. There's a couple of components that are different, but I'll explain that as we go. So if you're in the market for a Mini and you're not too fussy and you're not looking at a newish one, personally I'd be looking at a 05, 06 late first generation Mini, something with a few options to make it nice. Like every car, they get issues. There's common issues to think about, mainly gearbox problems, head gasket problems. Both of them are fixable. It is worth mentioning that if you've got an early Mini with engine problems, head gasket problems, it is well worth considering just replacing the engine. You can get a complete engine for less than £200, and I think you'd struggle to get your head gasket changed for less than £200 anywhere at a garage, or even yourself by the time you've got some machine work in there and a head gasket and the labour included. It really is not worth it. So it is worth mentioning, don't be afraid if a car maybe has had an engine, because they're cheap and it is just an easier fix than opening it up and trying to resolve some of the issues in there. The early cars, the pre-facelift, have a Midland type gearbox. The manual 5-speed is a Midland gearbox. They are very soft, I do go into a little bit more detail in the rest of the video. The later ones, the Get Right Gearbox, are a bit stronger but are prone also to failure. For both of them, you can convert them to the 6-speed gearbox out of the Cooper S, which is absolutely bulletproof, so that is an option. Automatic gearboxes are available. It's a CVT in these, which is constant velocity transmission. Again, they're not bad. They're an old box now. They're a bit jerky and they feel like an old gearbox, and they can fail as well, and they're a little bit more expensive. So that's worth thinking about if an automatic is something that you're interested in buying. Gearbox repairs could set you back. But other than that, it's just quirks and knowing what goes wrong, knowing what to look for when you go to buy a car, little niggly things that'll trip you over MOT time. And I can't stress this enough, getting a car that has high spec will make a massive difference. So sunroof, leather seats, heated seats, nice alloy wheels, things like that can really make the car feel much nicer. It's a nicer place to be inside. So I've got the car out in front, so we'll do a little walk around and I'll explain all the things to look for, what to look out for, things to consider, things to look at when you're looking for a car, when you go to view a car, things you should be checking. And these are things on top of your usual, has it been crashed, does it drive nice, things like that. So all your usual checks that you would do when buying a car still stand. These are, I'm trying to point out, that on top things that are Mini specific. So I hope this is a valuable video, and I hope that it's interesting and can help some people build a bit more knowledge of the earlier new Minis. So let's get outside and see what we've got. So things you want to be looking out for: rust around the rear lights, and rust around the boot handle. You see this one's nice and clean. Don't be afraid to open it up and have a good look. Something else to look for: these boot handles do fail and that they stop opening, but also these number plate lights, the connections inside get corroded and then they stop working. That'll be an MOT fail, so do make sure that your bulbs are working. The earlier pre-facelift cars have a tri-core type wiper motor on the rear, and they are renowned for failing. This is with it being a facelift, is a later Valio type, which is a better motor. They do still fail, but they are half the price. So if you've got a pre-facelift, might be worth considering upgrading to the Valio type. So do make sure that it squirts water out onto the screen and it actually works as well. Some models I've seen are starting to get a bit of rust on the bottom of these quarters and in the sills. You can't see the sills because these are actually plastic covers. But it is worth considering. If you can see a little bit of rust coming up here, maybe worth considering what might be lurking underneath. Other than that, you don't really need to worry about rust on these. Always check the bonnet, because the bonnet being so big, it is quite prone to knocks and bangs. So do check the bonnet, make sure it isn't full of filler or bad paintwork, etc. Headlights as well, they always go cloudy, but they do polish up nice. As you can see, them ones are nice and crystal clear. Moving on to suspension, they are quite common for the rear bush on the bottom arm in there. They fail, just like every car, just gets worn out. However, they are a bit of a pain to change on these R50 Minis, so it is well worth asking if they have been done. You've got to lower the subframe to be able to get enough access to get in to change them, so it's worth asking. Trims always seem to go missing. If it's had a windscreen replacement, the chances are these trims will either be broken or missing. Moving inside, very common on these Minis is the seat runners fail. So the seat needs to be able to slide forward when you press this little lever. What happens inside is there's a little cable up here that snaps and stops you being able to do that. That will again be an MOT fail, so make sure you're checking that. Inside, sun visors, these lids always drop off. There's supposed to be a little cover there on a hinge. They drop off. Not an MOT fail, but it is annoying. As you can see, this one needs a pair. While we're inside, shut the door. You need to make sure your central locking's working. So you've got this button here. You need to press it and make sure that both doors open and close. Those door locks are very, very common for failing. They're not too bad to change and they're only 20 quid-ish second hand, but it's worth checking. Same again with the electric windows, up and down. The motors and mechanisms do fail on these. Again, it's not that much of a job to do it, but it's worth doing. Glove box, give it a pull while it's shut. Make sure it doesn't fall open. What happens is the latches fail, and while you're driving along, this will drop open. This one's nice and good. Obviously, you need to be checking wear on your seats and things like that. I have seen a couple of cars. I'll just pop the ignition on, where this LCD screen goes pixelated or it dies completely, so you can't see your mileage or any of your information there. Again, same with this one, the LCD screen does fail. Make sure all your clocks and electrics work. They're not too bad for electrical failure. That's more of a later R56 thing. I have seen a couple of body control module failures where you'll get like things like brake lights staying on, or your wipers staying on, or just things generally electrically misbehaving. They do suffer a lot with that getting wet, really more than it failing. Mechanically, it gets wet and then goes a bit haywire. So if you're having some strange electrical faults, that's a good place to start looking. It lives behind this panel, just behind where your bonnet pull is. So if you have any electrical problems, look in there, see if it's wet. Another little one, indicator stalks go floppy. This one's nice and tight. Airbag light. Airbag light is very common. A lot of the time it is caused by, if it hasn't actually been in a crash, it's caused by your seat belts. The connections underneath the seat, they fail basically, and they stop connecting. So you need to either replace your seatbelt buckles, or you can cut the plug off and hardwire it. So engine bay, things you need to be looking out for. This is a coil pack on the top. This one pack does all 4 cylinders. These do fail and cause misfires. And I have also seen the terminals on the end. If I just pull one of these off, starting to go rusty. That's got a little bit of rust on it. That can also cause you a misfire, rather than it actually being the coil pack itself that's failed. It's just a bad connection. Strut top mounts. If you have an early car, so a pre-2003, these are a different strut top mount to the slightly later ones. They are quite difficult to get hold of. So if you've got a pre-2003 car, or you're looking at a pre-2003 car, do ask about strut tops. Have they been changed, or can you get them? Do they need change? Things like that. Otherwise, you'll have to convert it to a later type that takes this strut top, which isn't too much of a problem, but you will have to change the shock absorbers as well. Coolant, obviously make sure you've got plenty of coolant in. That one's empty because it's leaked all over my drive. These do leak oil and coolant. They're very common for that. The oil leaks seem to just come out of everywhere, to be honest. You've got the oil filter housing back there, which can cause oil leaks. Sump, timing case as well causes oil leaks. The oil leaks aren't too much of a worry as long as you keep an eye on them and make sure that you've got enough oil in. The coolant is more of a worry because these are quite soft in terms of head gasket failure. So if you run it out of coolant and you run it too long for too hot, you will damage the cylinder head and the head gasket. So do please check your coolant. There's no light, there won't be a light that comes on to tell you ran out. So you need to make sure that you're checking your coolant. Things that leak, thermostat housing, just down here, they're very common for leaking. Radiator, like this one, they're very common for leaking. And the water pump, which lives just below the alternator, they leak as well. And the pipe work to and from, there's some metal pipe work and some rubber pipe work around the lower section of the engine, they leak as well. So if you're losing coolant, you really need to find out why. Other than that, engine wise, they're not too bad. They're quite a reliable engine. Time and chain, you don't really need to worry about that, unless it's making a horrible racket. There's no interval for changing them. It's supposed to be a lifetime part. Gearboxes, you can't see it because it's in there. Can't stress this enough. The gearboxes in these are not very good in terms of failing. If you have a pre-2004 car, you'll have what is called a Midland gearbox. Basically a Rover gearbox, and they are very soft. The gears fail in them, they crunch, the bearings actually fail inside, so you'll get a very noisy gearbox while you're driving. I've seen cars with 50,000 miles on needing gearboxes. After 2004, between 2004 and 2006, they have what's called a Get Rag gearbox, which is more of a BMW style. It's not a BMW box, but it's a bit beefier. They meated you up a bit, and it is better. They're a bit stronger. Again, a 5-speed, but they are also prone to the diff bearings failing. So if you're going to go on a test drive, make sure you turn the radio off, you have a good listen, get it above 40, 50, 60 mile an hour, have a good listen, make sure there's no horrible noises. The noise that you'll hear will sound like a wheel bearing, like a grumbling, whining noise, or possibly crunching as well in the gears. If you're experiencing any of them, you need to look at gearbox replacement or rebuild. They're not too expensive. You'll pay maybe £250 for a second-hand gearbox, but they're a bit of a pain to change. So if you're looking to buy a car, it's definitely worth getting it up to speed. Don't just tinkle it around the block at 15-20 mile an hour, because you'll not hear it. You need to be in all the gears, and listening out for them horrible noises. Speaking about horrible noises, power steering pumps. Now, they live down there. This is the reservoir. The power steering pump is straight down there. Now, they are quite a noisy pump anyway. They do whine. They're also very common for failing. So you'll find sometimes maybe your battery's getting drained and the power steering pump doesn't switch off. Or your power steering will just die completely. It'll be the pump. They're about 150, 160 pounds second hand. I think they're about 350 new. They're not that bad to change. It's just a bit of a messy and fiddly job, but definitely worth checking. Alternators are prone to failing as well. They'll just go cattywampus and stop charging. Again, you need to make sure you're getting the right one. There's a couple of different types, so don't just chuck alternators on willy-nilly. This being a 06, so it's a very late car. The ABS pump is a slightly better one. This has the optional ASC as well. The earlier cars with just the ABS, the pumps, like I'm talking 2001, 2002, 2003, the pumps are quite weak. They do fail and they're quite expensive second hand as well. You can get them remanufactured, but again, that can be quite expensive for what is now getting onto a 25-year-old car. You don't want to be spending £400 or £500 on an ABS pump. The later cars, they did improve them a little bit. I have seen ABS pump failures, but you're talking 30-40 quid for a second-hand pump, so they're not too bad. So look out for ABS warning lights on the dash, and if you're scanning them and you're getting modulator codes or speed sensors faults that just don't go away after you've changed the speed sensors, you'll be looking at an ABS fault in the pump itself. Other than that, really it's just general things like making sure it's not being crashed. You need to make sure your chassis legs are straight, make sure it's not pulling all over the road. Generally, they're quite a solid car compared to the slightly later R56 ones. I feel are a bit softer. But yeah, for a 25-year-old car, it's got, they do have niggles. You will find, if you're in the market for a Mini, you'll see people mentioning power steering things in the description. You'll see people mentioning gearbox. Pay attention to that, because them things matter. They're the things that are going to cost you a lot of money. If you're only paying £800,000-900,000 for a car, you don't want to be spending £250 on a gearbox, £100 on an ABS pump, £150 on a power steering pump. So these are the questions you need to be asking yourself. Have they been done? You need to be asking the seller, have they been done? But they are great cars, they're good fun. They handle nice, they drive nice, they're cheap and cheerful, and they're quite good on fuel, really. Little 1.6, they're not bad. One other thing to consider when buying a Mini is the optional extras. Now, for me, optional extras on a Mini make the world of difference. If it hasn't got very good options or a very good spec, they can be a bit horrible. I'm talking, you're going to have to think of leather seats, half leather seats. Facelift cars just generally look a little bit nicer. You've got slightly different design headlights on the facelift. Same for the tail lights. Chrome bits, jazz them up a bit. Nice set of wheels. They don't have to be huge wheels. You can get 16s and 17s, which look tidy. These are 16s. They're nice enough. But if you're looking at a high spec car, expect to pay a little bit more money for it. Nice wheels, chrome pieces, big leather seats. Obviously, this being a park lane, has the optional lounge leather seats. Things like sat nav is quite rare. It's quite a nice option. Or you can have what's called a chrono pack, where you'll have an oil pressure gauge here and twin clocks, an extra speedo here instead. These steering wheels aren't too bad with the leather, but you can get a nicer one which has a bottom spoke as well. Things like that, for me, make or break the car. The more options you can get in a little Mini like this, the nicer it'll be. And to be honest, the more it'll hold its value. Sunroof as well. Unfortunately, we don't have a sunroof in this one. Sunroof is a beautiful option on these Minis. It's a full panoramic sunroof. A very large glass piece that actually opens all the way. But do shop about. There's loads of Minis out there for sale. The limited edition, special edition ones tend to be a little bit nicer. They do bring a little bit more of a cost with that. But look for options. Look for sunroof, Xeon headlights, chrono pack, heated seats. But do make sure you check all them things that I mentioned. Gearbox failure, power steering pump, head gasket. Look for signs of head gasket, water exploding everywhere. Make sure your electrics work. And if you do that, you'll not be too far away. Most of the problems in a Mini, if you're quite handy, you can do them. The engine bay is quite packed in, quite like an original Mini. Everything's tight packed in. You've got to take a million things off to do anything. But they're a simple engine, really. And reliability wise, other than them three main things, you're not going to have Vanos faults. You're not going to have timing chain issues. You're not going to have endless supplies of electrical faults. They're quite a simple little car, which the world seems to have lost. Let's be honest. There's not many cars you can say nowadays that are nice and simple and easy to work on, that don't get a lot of faults. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So if you're in the market for a Mini, look out for those things. And happy motoring. Find yourself something with a bit of spec that's sorted out, it's had the work done, and you'll love it. Fuel tank straps. There they are. There's one, and there's another one over that side. This one's not a problem because it's facelift, but if you've got a pre-facelift, those are made out of steel, and they rust, and they break, and what happens is your fuel tank falls out while you're driving along the road, which is not ideal. They're not too bad to fix. The easiest fix is to fit a set of these, which is a facelift fuel tank straps. They don't rust. So if you've got a pre-facelift, pre-2004, see if they've been done, or if not, be prepared to have to change them. You'll pay about £30 for one of them.
second hand as a pair. They're not too bad. While we're under here, exhausts again. I know exhaust failure of a car this age is nothing to be surprised by, but those rubber mounts up there, they fail as well, and what will happen is the exhaust will drop and you'll find that the tailpipe actually sits down about here. So you need to see if your exhaust is hanging low, check them rubber mounts up there, because I bet they will have fallen off. If your car needs an exhaust, change them at the same time, because it's much easier to do them when this isn't in the way.
Well, there we go, guys. I hope that's been worth your while, worth your time. I do appreciate you taking your time out to view the videos. If it's been helpful, please do let me know. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you've got any comments, leave them in the comments section. Any questions about minis, I'm happy to help. I'll help anybody out with information and knowledge. And also, that car will be for sale once I finish fettling it. If you want to know a bit more about that car, go back one video and have a look at that. But I think that's pretty much it, really. I think I've spoken everything that needs to be spoken about. I think we've mentioned all the really important things. So if you're going to buy a Mini, please do take into consideration what I've said, and have fun. It's a great little car. Not everybody can afford or can manage a classic Mini. If you can't have a bit of fun with your car, then what's the point? Life's too short to own boring cars. So with that, I'm gonna sign off. Please do like, share, subscribe to the channel, share with your mates. Keep tuned in if you're interested in some work on the new Mini. There will be some videos coming in the next couple of weeks, and also continued restoration of this beautiful Mini pickup. We're getting there now with the front end. I'm really happy with how it's coming together. So hopefully in the next week I should have some content on this. We'll definitely have some content on the new Mini, and I'm sure there'll be something happening in between. Thanks for joining me. I'm Ed. This is Ed's Mini Empire. I'll catch you next time.